media industry, you know, what is Sky, what is BBC, what are other things media outlets going to do in the face of ChatGPT and LLMs. So to discuss that, we've got Elena, who has her own media outlet in the data space. A lot of followers, so definitely come on stage and introduce yourself. And I'd love to hear what your strategy is in the face of ChatGPT and generative AI. Well, here is your clip.
Okay, thank you. All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Francesca, for the invitation. Happy to be here, and it was very exciting to be also at the previous discussion to hear. Coming from an art background, actually, it's also very nice to see how art is evolving with AI. So I will start. Oh, there you go. That's me again. I will start my presentation. So I actually, just to tell you a little bit about me, I actually come from arts, and that's how I got into tech, funnily enough. And then I started a media company back in 2015, specifically for the data science and machine learning community. And now we are experimenting ever since with content creation and consumption and curation when it comes to how to integrate content and how to actually use these technologies for publishing. So, hello everybody from the Data Natives tribe. Data Natives was the idea behind that really inspired me to actually start Data Economy Data Natives. So Data Natives was an article that was written by Monica Ragati. She was the first data scientist, or the head of data science at LinkedIn. And she basically talked about a revolution, or let's say a new type of generation that came up, now predominantly millennials and Gen Zers, who essentially were so entranced in technology that they made it their second skin. So in a way, what we potentially soon will be calling the cyborg humans out there. So people who are really integrated between technology and humans, like the beats and the atoms coming together. And what was exciting about that is how essentially can you be so entranced that you use technology in your everyday life, you're not even thinking about it, and essentially it becomes like an automated thing that you do, like the same way that your phone is an extension of you, right? So you expect that it would know how to send you directions, give you personalized recommendations, and other things. So, but where does this all come from, and why am I so excited about it? So I would like to first maybe take a step back and talk about one exciting era for humanity that has actually changed a lot of the way civilization has evolved. So the Renaissance. Does anyone here would like to take the podium or raise their hands and say why the Renaissance happened? Would you? You had some really nice remarks before. Anyone? Would you like to give a guess? How the... Sorry? Meditation. One way to do it.
Actually, it was one of the first intersections between technology and art, and they couldn't create all these greatest paintings without camera obscura. So it was like the first technology implemented to revolutionize the art scene.
Exactly. That's pretty much where. Thank you so much. That's almost what I was getting to. One of the reasons, basically, of Renaissance is because it was the first integration of technology. It was basically how we start using technology to be able to communicate information. So the revolutionary thing in Renaissance, apart from how you actually were able to see art paintings, was also how you're able to write and have things transcripted. So they had access for the first time in manuscripts from ancient times, from ancient Greeks, ancient Romans. And that really helped education and information being spread around. So basically, it's all about publishing. So a big part of how the Renaissance became such an important era for humanity, which is pretty much the pinnacle of what's happening today, was because we had publications. We were able to transcript again for the first time loads of information, which was not only available for, okay, let's say not as much, now even more democratizing, let's put it this way, it was available to a bigger part of the population. So, that's something that we were able to do with publications. So publications, of course, we're talking about here manuscripts, talking about books, Nowadays, we're talking about, when it comes to publication, of course, it's blogs, and it's a lot of forms of publishing online. So how about the AI renaissance? How about what will be the civilization now? What can we see now with the technology that we have available to be able to revolutionize the way and democratize the way that we are transcribing information? Two things that I took as a takeaway from the previous panel, which by the way was very interesting, and thank you for that, was when it comes to having so much information available, there's two things that you can immediately notice. One is there's democratization. Everybody can actually access, and everybody, well, brackets, can actually also, whoever has access to the computers, and now pretty much like the biggest part of the population has access to technology, they can have access to the information. And the other thing, of course, that comes with it is the curation. So the limitation that you also need to put to be able to critically think about what these technologies are transmitting, what the information you have there. So that's why, and this is an old saying, right? Content is queen. And I love cat memes. I think that's one of the first things that managed to go viral on this internet. But basically, this is pretty much what we have, right? And that's pretty much what has managed, at least in the beginning of the dot revolution, then in the Web 2 era, essentially managed to get us all together with social media, right? So we all managed to share publicly content, to read our publicly content, and essentially with content we either became influencers, we either be able to start our businesses, we managed to create whole businesses that were based on other businesses like Google or Facebook, etc. So content has been queen, well, not king, I'm gonna say queen, and content will continue to play a pivotal role. So when it comes to generative AI technologies, one of the adaptations that you can see is how you can actually publish and distribute content. And of course, from my side, coming with the data economy, data science, and data natives, really believing that data science can actually really bring a new frontier of technology. Let's say data for me is the new internet. I don't know if you've seen this video that went out in the 90s by David Bowie. There was a very famous interview that he was actually talking about the internet. No one believed him, but the internet, guys, is really gonna change. It's gonna be a game changer. And he would just come as like an artist, a bit wacky, just saying something like that could be a bit controversial. Well, I would say data is the new internet. So, we've been talking about crypto, over-centralization of NFTs. Well, I think data is basically what will be now, with this overflow of information, with all of these terabytes of data that we're actually creating every day in all of the public media that we're part of, that would be actually what would make really and break the internet. And why is that? Well, by 2026, and we're talking about 3 years away, right? We're not talking about like 10 years in time. We're talking about next corner, 90% of online content, 90% of what we see on the internet would be synthetically generated. I would let that sink in. What does that mean? That means that all the information we already have been putting on, and I don't know how active you've been online, if you've been present on all social media, if you've been posting every picture of your newborn child or marriage that you've attended, or anything that you're sharing on LinkedIn, any information that you read, any white papers, any open access books that you've downloaded. Well, all of this will be soon synthetically generated. So you won't even need to create this content. It will be there and you'll be playing with it. And what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of content creation? What kind of applications can we see? That means that articles can be regenerated synthetically. That means, and by articles I mean when we're talking about media, when we're talking about publications online, that would essentially mean that we can have a lot of Gen AI articles created, distribution, new ways of distributing, potentially even translating distribution, like there's a lot of publications that could potentially have an original language in English, French, German. They can be automatically translated in another language, which gives them a lot more reach. Social media, the that's like a given. You can repurpose content. You can have new content synthetically generated, images from DALL-E or Midjourney or wherever else synthetically generated and used to be on social media. And of course, campaigns, when you have these business applications of this content, right? So used for marketing purposes, so email, copy, etc. So, and we, before in the panel before, we looked at, we looked at about how that, what the implications are in image and in art. Well, let's talk about another form of generative AI, which is NLP, natural language, which mainly there is abbreviations for natural language processing. So the natural language processing applications, as I stated them before, the 4 different segments, essentially that translates in copy. Marketing copy, where we're talking about business, emails, if we're talking about writing to someone, articles, subject line creation, so helping you find the best way to address a topic, potentially co-authoring a book. I believe there's an author here who already wrote a book using ChatGPT. Having a Q&A, that is having chatbots on your website that automatically respond and detect depending on what the customer says, what the person, the user says, and essentially start a conversation. Having summaries, well, having first stories that can actually also go very wacky. There've been actually movies already from 2016, so not yesterday, like 5-6 years ago already. There've been movies submitted at Sundance Festival, which were entirely written by ChatGPT, which feel very dadaistic and surreal. So it has like this very element of surprise because it just doesn't make much sense. I'm pretty sure by the end of this year we would have whole scripts that would make total sense because of the data that would be inputted already to the machine to be able to process and analyze it. Summaries of documents, making it, I don't know if you are familiar, there was an app that has been around called Blinkist. Do you know of the Blinkist app? So Blinkist app basically does summaries of books. I use it because I love reading books, but I don't have the time, and it basically makes 20-minute summaries of really, really interesting, highly dense, highly like intellectual books. So you won't even need Blinkist soon because you will be able to have your own summaries of the books if you want to. You can insert it on ChatGPT or similar technologies, hopefully open source language models, and essentially you'll be able to get the summaries afterwards of those books, potentially even in audio format, document, translations, etc. Just a couple of thoughts just to give you an overview of what could be essentially and what already is out there. And how would that work, right? So, are you familiar with the term prompt engineering? Yeah? Okay, I see quite a few heads nodding here. So, prompt engineering is essentially now the new popular job out the market. It's especially in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, is the new type of engineer who essentially knows how to use these technologies. So, a prompt engineer knows how to ask the right questions, in essence. Of course, you need to have an engineering background to also be able to understand, and that's a running joke, I think, between engineers, that you need to have the engineering background to understand when the AI goes wrong, how much time will it take you to actually fix it? But let's put it this way, for an AI content response, so something to be able to respond accordingly, whether positively or negatively, that would be a potential workflow. So you basically ask the right question, you draft it, you edit it, you upload it, and I'm sorry for being so blunt and actually like saying it in such a simple way. It sounds like the IT crowd going like, have you turned on the on and off button? But it is as it is. So you upload it there, and then there's an NLP analysis, so a natural language process analysis on what you're asking. Essentially, there's going to be collaboration between the human and the AI to be able to figure out the best results that you're looking for. Then you're distributing it wherever you want to be distributing it, capturing, and then you go again. So it's a circle, right? It's essentially a very easy compliance workflow response of how exactly can you use that in your company. For example, of course you would potentially need a prompt engineer, and then we're going a step ahead, but it is as simple as that, or at least it sounds as simple as that. I really like history, so that was one of the reasons why I studied art in the beginning. I really liked how art can explain society and civilization. So historically, and I'm going to take you historically to Washington Post 5 years ago, just so far behind, when Washington Post, acquired by Jeff Bezos, started actually the first AI that was used in publishing. It was called Heliograph, and he was doing an experiment trying to figure out essentially if the Washington Post can optimize their workflow and optimize how they are creating and distributing articles. So what they've noticed was a big increase in terms of the volume of articles they could produce. And of course, a very good collaboration potentially between the reporters and the AI tool. And that was maybe 5 years ago. Maybe it was even 7, 8 years ago. I've lost track of time since COVID. But I think it was in 2017 when that happened. And it was really, it increased. I mean, it had a lot of, when they started it had already a lot of impressions. So they managed to increase the volume of articles from 300 to 500 overnight. They managed to respond for important news back in 2012. In those elections, they only managed to do 15% of the work of the articles responded in the 2016 election. So essentially, using these technologies, managed to write already a lot of articles. That's just one early adoption, let's say, and that was before the Gen AI boom, as it is now. The technology, of course, existed since 2014. For whoever doesn't know this, actually, the technology that now we're calling Gen AI has already existed since 2014, but now it has been massively and mainstream adopted. So already you can see from 2016 and 17, there was a lot of people using. There was already a publication, a very known one, that was already using early versions of AI. And now, moving forward, I'm pretty sure there's been already an adoption from other big publications here as well. This is one that has been publicly open, that has been the case. And basically what they created back then and what they called it was the automated storytelling. So in a way, it's picking up the topic from online, picking up the topic from out there, and being able to create a first draft of an article. Putting the parameters, is it going to be 600 words? Do we need 1,000 words? I mean, now with ChatGPT, you can train the model to even write like you, if you provide it with enough data of your previous writing. And essentially, like, there's two things that you can see here. A, you put the, let's say, the buzzwords or the keywords that you want to come up when the news go out, and you also want to make sure that it's writing articles based on your tone or style. So as much as possible close to how you would express something. Automating storytelling, I mean, as it is now with arts, there was a big backlash at the beginning, and there's a fear that journalists or reporters would no longer be needed. But of course, like with everything like that, is not the case. It just makes, and I mean, that's why I also started with giving you the story on publishing and how important it has been in the Renaissance. Every sort of technology that comes out there, it's there to support and help humans. So it's us, it's the humans that need to adopt and pick up the skills to actually be able to use it as much as possible. One thing that has been also flagged when it comes to the AI ethics and debate is whether we're able to understand the tools. I mean, I don't know. I do a lot of automated things every day. I'm pretty sure you too. I don't understand half of the things that we do every day, right? So we just do them because we know we've learned how to do them. Have you ever thought about where coffee even comes from, for example, when you're making it in the morning? Like, have you thought, oh, this coffee has been, you know, collected or been ethically, like, fair traded there? No, you just drink your coffee. Have you thought about where the water comes when you're drinking your water? Just simple things like that. Why do we have to question and understand exactly how we got to where we are with AI? Well, there needs to be documentation, of course, but, you know, it's there to support us and help us. So robots, really, and and I call them robots, AI, generative AI can really help reporters to optimize and to also distribute more content and to pick up news and create more content. There are some new tools, and I've been flirting with using them, actually. There's an AI startup here in London, it's called Overtone. I haven't used them yet, so I'm just like mentioning them without having used them. But basically what they're doing is, they're helping content creators and publications create better content. So they work in two ways. They pretty much take all the content that you have online, they analyze it, and then they help you optimize your content. So they're very much helpful for journalists, they're very helpful for reporters, and of course helping publications reach more audience. Another application of AI, it's, when it comes to publishing, is social media. So when you are, as a publication, as a media outlet, when you're starting creating articles, and by the way, usually as a publication, you create a lot of articles a month. Usually the small, medium-sized publications create around 400 articles, go to 5,000 to 10,000 articles. Of course, you need to also make sure to distribute them as much as possible. Social media right now, I mean, there's even publications that solely exist on social media. There was a publication that got funding recently in Turkey, 4 million, for creating an Instagram publication. They didn't even have a website or a blog. They just had an Instagram publication. So this is where they distributed their content. They had their news. It was basically an image with a bit of a caption below, and they managed to get that much money to continue developing it. So one thing that can be very, very helpful and can automatically happen with Gen AI is essentially having an all-in-one social media management platform. We specifically use Missing Letter. So Missing Letter, what it does, I feel like I'm plugging in. I'm giving you my tips. So Missing Letter, for example, what it does is you put the article out there, and then it picks it up and essentially creates a small description based on the article. So you don't really need a social, if you have a media publication that is with the blog, you don't really need a social media manager for these specific posts. Of course, you need someone to manage other stuff of the social media account, but this can be easily done with Missing Letter. You can, of course, also use AI artists or Midjourney or DALL-E to create your images as well that you want to post everywhere. But that is something that you can easily do. And in the future, as I already said, by 2026, most of the content would be generated synthetically. We can also think about how we can interact with the social media, how we can interact with the posts that we put out there. Because it's not only about creating the content, it's not only about distributing it, it's not only about putting it out there, it's also about interacting with the community. So there's two things that you can see. One is accentuating the positive, essentially connection with your brand, recognizing, attracting, and advocacy. You pick up this, for example, this picture, you can say, oh, you have this website petsmedia.com, you write all about dogs, for example, and you can say, oh, this is such a cute dog, can we write a story about it? Essentially, you scroll the internet, you find these images, you have an automated message that says something like that, and then you post it. You can also, okay. I think there was also one about flagging the negative, which potentially was, deleted by accident. So by flagging the negative, I mean, essentially when there's something that is really fake news, right? That's one of the fears. Well, fake news and AI hallucinations. I don't know if I have time to talk about either of them, but essentially when it comes to putting something out there which is not double-checked, putting potentially content out there which is historically inaccurate or reported falsely, or using your brand and affiliating it with something that you didn't write or you didn't say. If you put the parameters correctly on your LLM, you can potentially flag that content that has been wrongfully attributed to you online and being able to take it down. Very briefly, the future of Gen AI applications and implications. So right now, we're looking at democratizing content and insights and creation. So essentially, what was one of the insights from the previous panel as well, basically all the content out there. You're able to get the insights and create as much content, create new books, create new publications, you know, take it and use it as an assistant for you. Oh, okay, there you go. That was a jump there by mistake. Okay. Okay, I don't know what happened, sorry guys. Well, this was the landscape of the applications, but I'm gonna jump now that since I was telling you about the future, and I'm sorry, there was AI hasn't helped me yet to actually make sure that all of my slides are in order and potentially something happened with the jump. The next 3 years, well, as I said, you can really see some boost in your content. You can potentially use the tools to support your reporters. That means maybe less junior entry position coming up as open, or potentially, you know, keeping more senior people who have experience to strategize, or maybe even taking and training your entry-level staff already in strategy. Who wouldn't have liked to do that instead of having to jump to do all these operational things? Having less admin and having more creation and creativity and content curation. And of course, in the next 5 years, what we're looking into is dynamic tailored experience. Tailored experience. What we had with recommendation engines, right? We've all used them. We all use Netflix, we all use Spotify, we all like when a tune comes on and we know it, or a tune comes on and is very close to what we usually like. That's pretty much how our experience on the internet will be next. We'll be able to have tailored experience and change our engagement and how we interact with each other. Would that be AI and Web3 wed together? Maybe. I mean, or some principles of it. We're all going to be owners of our own data out there on the web and using AI to augment our experiences, hopefully. Will AI, AR, and VR play a point? Who knows? I really hope there is not just another sensitization when it comes to AI. I hope it's not another bubble like crypto or NFTs or other similar ones. And I really hope that this is actually the next frontier for content creation, distribution, and curation. And I really hope that it would help us really develop critical thinking when it comes to these tools. And I think that I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a question for you. So AI, ChatGPT, has a habit of hallucinating. It will make up information. But as someone who runs a media outlet, I know that the truth is a really important thing for journalists. So how do you, as a media outlet, uphold the truth, and what practices should media outlets put in place if their journalists are, using ChatGPT to put an article here and there? You can't control your staff and their activities.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and actually that's I was trying to touch upon it a little bit before. So I like how actually we call it AI hallucinations. By the way, it has like something a bit of an out of norm to it, right? Of course, when it comes to publishing content, what you really want to make sure is that you are only publishing the truth and that you are reporting with facts and not with make-up stories. So there's tools already in place, or they are already some publications do their own tools, some companies provide tools like this where you can fact check. Because one thing that I can see happening a lot, and potentially would be the future as well when it comes to creating content, would be a lot of submissions of people. And I mean, it already happens, right? You have like news now happening, and people on social media will report it before maybe a publication will be able to report it. They will just be there on the ground and send a video or a picture. So what the reporter's job is...
So would that be an opportunity to aggregate the on-the-ground reporting from real-life citizens and create articles?
Exactly. So essentially you'll be able to get data from everyone that is on the ground. Everybody can be citizen-driven reporters, essentially. Everybody could use their own phones to document it. And the jobs of the reporter then is to make sure that they check on the truth, get back on the facts, make sure that what has been stated happens and is not a deep fake. Because that's, even before AI hallucinations, it was deep fake. fakes, right? You could actually create a whole video with a known actor or celebrity stating something.
All sorts of things.
Exactly, stating something that is not true.
So, do you have 5 minutes for some questions? Does anyone, if you could hold up your hand, I'll run over.
I hope I'm loud. EU law is coming out. They are debating now. I think one of the clauses says in the future people are debating any content that generated by AI has to be clearly stated. Now, just like what you say, if for the next few years most of the internet content is going to be AI, and we know that AI has this hallucination problem, how much interest would people be drawn to read those content, especially say generated by ChatGPT, knowing that it could be not faster?
So, very good question. So, first of all, when it comes to content, Adobe and Google, so with Bard, they will make sure that every content that they already announced as well, that every content that is generated synthetically would be stated as such. However, what I'm also suggesting here is not having articles that are 100% generated by ChatGPT. I mean, this is plagiarism in a way, right? It was forbidden before internet. It's going to continue being forbidden. What ChatGPT can do is this human AI integration, which is now coined as Centaur AI. So essentially, like being something between a human and a horse together. So this is like how the human and the AI can work together. So first, you would have ChatGPT or similar. You can treat this information as your VA assistant, right? You have the information there. You take it. And then it's the human's responsibility to pretty much screen it and also put the personal touch. So a human AI integration. So articles that would state that this has been sourced from the internet and then putting a special touch to it.
So you will have a disclaimer of contributor title.
Yes, disclaimer on everything and make sure that it's a combination.
I have a proposal as well. So there is someone called Nate Silver. He's a statistician. He will forecast the elections and all sorts of things, the results of sports. And what he does with every article, he'll have a GitHub with data. So that's the evidence, and he has collected that data. So I think as a media outlet, you eventually it will be about stating these are the sources. It's not just one account here. This is a huge survey that we've run. It's recent. All of these elements. So maybe that also can help solve it, through data. Any other questions?
Thanks very much. Andrew Eborn, Octopus TV. Great talk, loved it. Rishi Sunak, a couple of days ago, was saying we want the UK to be the hub of AI, and we talked about the threats and the opportunities and the guardrails that need to be in place. Obviously, hallucinations is one of them. If you're drowning in a sea of misinformation, most of which is false, and you perpetuate them if that's difficult. Apart from hallucinations, what are those guardrails? What would you put in place?
What would I put in place to avoid hallucinations?
More the general thing. They were talking about the threats of AI, and lots of people, they're always either really positive stories or really negative stories. They had a lawyer in New York last week on a negligence claim, and they quoted all sorts of cases in court, and they say, hang about, this was done by ChatGPT, the judge said, I don't recognise these cases, because they were all made up, and the lawyer is now subject to disciplinary proceedings and so on and so forth. It's those sort of things, checking on hallucinations, but I do think it's a much bigger problem than people give it credit for. But when we're talking about the guardrails that Rishi Sunak talked about, what protections do you think should be in place to make sure that AI doesn't ruin everybody's lives?
Ruins them. Yes, it's always like either it's very like tech optimism or really dystopian futures and everybody's dying, no jobs, we're gonna be ruled by AI and so forth. Robocop scenarios. So I think like already some of them have been mentioned. So for sure, like fact checking, making sure that everything that we put in, it's been double checked, triple checked. Disclaiming of data source, so explainable, like using as much as possible explainable AI. So going back and understanding how the machine get there. Making sure that you also point unconscious biases, which in a way are human hallucinations. Essentially, it's the data that you input to the system that comes up with whatever result it is because of X, Y, Z. You only collected data from a specific gender or area, location or age group and so forth. So being able to really be transparent when it comes to what data sources you have. And copyrights as much as possible, and regulations to a point. I wouldn't go as extreme as what has been debated to actually ban ChatGPT. I think Italy was thinking about doing that. Europe wants to put some regulations. I think this is not, that's a bit silly, nonsense, let's say. But I would say that for sure it has to be like as much as possible, like explainability around how the results came about. And with hallucinations, I think that's I mean, we made the AI to be like us, right? Our hallucinations are our lies or what we tell ourselves. So how can we make sure that we have put on processes there to report in a way that would avoid that?
I'm sorry to pick you up on that as well. I mean, fact checking is so important, especially from a journalistic point of view. But in a world which is 99% rubbish, how on earth do you fact check?
Well, good questions again. So first of all, potentially by creating tools that would flag specific, like using NLP, but that would flag specific things as, okay, that doesn't come across correctly, and having a human behind that would actually fact check. Well, the human behind that fact checks, obviously then the question is, because I can see this becoming a dialogue here, the question then is, okay, so how do you know that the human actually knows how to fact check? I guess we need to make sure that, we have all this information, like the databases are out there, we've been collecting it for eons and eons, we digitize it, we just need to make sure that we have the sources and the resources to be able to go back and check it.
It's a long conversation, I look forward to it.
One more question. So with platforms like Facebook, at the beginning they would look at net neutrality. So you have extreme left, extreme right. Were they going to try and create harmony between both of them? In the end, they decided on this siloed approach. ChatGPT is very much the same. As time goes on and you feed it with data, it will give you what you want and what you believe. Is that? I'd love to hear, what people's thoughts are on that. If it's positive, if it's negative. What are your views if we then end up with a more extreme world because you're just being told what you want to hear, essentially?
That's a good point. But you create your own reality in a way, right? So on one hand, and that's something that has come up with Facebook specifically, it creates your own experience through the platform. So you pretty much start only seeing on your newsfeed things of people that you listen to and your belief system is very much attuned to. I think we only notice it now online because that's a new way that we've communicated now. But if you look at it back, even like in an analog society, you only have a specific amount of people that you connect with, right? You only have a specific amount of people that you talk daily. Of course, these are 100 and 150. According to sociological studies, that's how many people you can be connected to, really. So those 150 people are probably not extreme right or extreme left, depending on where you are in your positioning, or they have like specific beliefs depending on who you are. So I guess if anything, with technology, we're giving even more possibility to broaden our scope, even if it still feels limited. I think going back to what we're saying before, it's about actually being able to explain what the data source you have and being able to have a source of maybe a truthful conversation with yourself. Okay, so I'm getting this information because I'm only following this media outlet, I'm only watching this type of movies, I'm only reading this kind of news.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up there, and now we've got a break, and then we've got a number of sessions on fashion and AI, generative AI.
Thank you.